I'll never forget the day my son, John, was born. It was like my whole world had changed. I was so happy to have a child, to be a father. As John grew up, I was always there for him. I attended every school event, every sports game, every parent-teacher conference. I was the proud father, cheering him on from the sidelines. But when my wife passed away, everything changed. John was 18 at the time, and he just disappeared. He didn't come to the funeral, he didn't call, he didn't visit. I was devastated. I tried to reach out to him, to talk to him, to see how he was doing. But he just ignored me. For 10 years, I didn't hear from him. I didn't know what he was doing, where he was living, or if he was even okay. I tried to move on with my life, but the pain of his absence never went away. Then, one day, I received a call from John. He said he needed to talk to me about something important. I was hesitant at first, but I decided to hear him out. He told me that he had a son of his own now, and he needed money to pay for his tuition. He asked me for $200,000, which was the exact amount of my inheritance from my wife. I was taken aback by his request. I didn't know what to say. Part of me wanted to help him, to support my own grandchild's education. But another part of me was angry, hurt, and betrayed. Why had he ignored me for so long, only to come back now and ask for money? But what he didn't know was that I had already spent $50,000 of that inheritance on my own grandchild's education. I had been taking care of my own family, my own way. I looked at the phone, thinking about what to say. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I knew that this was a turning point, a moment of truth. And then, I said something that would change everything. "I'm sorry, John," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "I don't think I can give you the money." There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could almost hear John's anger and frustration building up. "What do you mean you can't give me the money?" he asked, his voice raised. "It's my inheritance, Dad. I deserve it." "I understand that, John," I said, trying to reason with him. "But I've already spent some of that money on your sister's education. And besides, I don't think it's right for me to just hand over all that money to you without knowing what you're planning to do with it." There was another pause, and I could sense John's anger boiling over. "You're not going to give me the money, are you?" he spat. "You're just going to keep it all for yourself, like you always do." "That's not fair, John," I said, feeling a surge of defensiveness. "I've always been there for you, supported you, provided for you. And this is how you repay me." "I don't need your guilt trip, Dad," John said, his voice cold and detached. "I just need the money. And if you're not going to give it to me, then maybe I'll just have to take it." I felt a chill run down my spine as I heard John's words. What did he mean by, "take it"? Was he threatening me? "John, I don't think that's a good idea," I said, trying to reason with him. "Let's talk about this, figure out a solution that works for both of us." But John just laughed. "You're not in a position to make demands, Dad," he said. "I'm the one who needs the money, and I'm the one who's going to get it. One way or another." I felt a sense of unease building up inside me as I listened to John's words. What was he planning to do? And how far would he go to get what he wanted? "John, please," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. "Let's not do anything rash. Let's talk about this, figure out a solution." But John just hung up the phone. I was left standing there, feeling shaken and unsure of what to do next. I knew that I had to be careful, that I had to protect myself and my family from John's wrath. But as I stood there, trying to process what had just happened, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in grave danger. That John was capable of doing something terrible, something that would destroy everything I held dear. I tried to push the thoughts away, to tell myself that I was being paranoid. But the fear lingered, gnawing at my insides like a rat. I knew that I had to do something, to take action to protect myself and my family. But what? As I stood there, trying to decide what to do next, I heard a knock at the door. It was a soft knock, hesitant. I felt a surge of fear as I wondered who it could be. I cautiously made my way to the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I looked through the peephole, and my heart skipped a beat as I saw a familiar face standing on the other side. It was John's wife, Sarah. She looked nervous and scared, and I could sense that something was wrong. I opened the door, and Sarah rushed inside. "Please, you have to help me," she said, her voice trembling. "John is going to do something terrible. I don't know what it is, but I know it's not good." I felt a surge of fear as I listened to Sarah's words. What was John planning to do? And how could I stop him? But as I looked into Sarah's scared eyes, I knew that I had to do something. I had to protect her, and myself, and my family. "Tell me everything," I said, my voice firm. "What's going on, Sarah?" Sarah took a deep breath, and began to tell me a story that would change everything. "John has been acting strange for weeks," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been getting these mysterious phone calls, and he's been sneaking out of the house at night. I don't know what he's doing, but I know it's not good." I felt a surge of fear as I listened to Sarah's words. What was John involved in? And how deep was he in? "Have you talked to him about it?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. Sarah shook her head. "He just gets angry and tells me to mind my own business. But I know something is wrong. I can feel it." I nodded, trying to process what Sarah was telling me. "What makes you think he's going to do something terrible?" I asked. Sarah hesitated, looking around the room nervously. "I found something in his office," she said finally. "A piece of paper with a name and address on it. And a note that said, 'Take care of it.'" I felt a chill run down my spine as I listened to Sarah's words. What did the note mean? And who was the person on the paper? "Do you have the paper?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Sarah nodded, and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. I took it from her, and smoothed it out. The name on the paper was unfamiliar, but the address was not. It was the address of my business partner, James. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what John might be planning. Was he going to hurt James? And why? I looked up at Sarah, who was watching me with a worried expression. "We need to go to the police," I said, trying to keep my voice calm. But Sarah shook her head. "No, we can't," she said. "John will know if we go to the police. And he'll do something to stop us." I felt a surge of fear as I realized the danger we were in. What could John do to stop us? And how far would he go to keep his secrets safe? I looked around the room, trying to think of a plan. But before I could come up with anything, I heard a noise outside. It sounded like someone was trying to get in. Sarah's eyes went wide with fear as she realized what was happening. "It's John," she whispered. "He's found us." I felt a surge of adrenaline as I realized what we had to do. We had to get out of there, and fast. But as I turned to run, I saw that it was too late. John was standing in the doorway, a look of anger and determination on his face. "You're not going anywhere," he said, his voice cold and menacing. I felt a surge of fear as I realized that we were trapped. And that John was not going to let us go without a fight. I tried to stand my ground, but John's eyes seemed to bore into my soul, making me feel like I was shrinking away. Sarah, on the other hand, seemed to be frozen in fear, her eyes fixed on John with a mixture of terror and pleading. "What do you want, John? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. John's smile was cold and calculating. I want the money, Dad, he said. The $200,000 that's rightfully mine. And I'm not leaving until I get it. I felt a surge of anger at John's audacity, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I've already told you, John, I said. I'm not giving you that money. It's not yours to take. John's face twisted in anger, and he took a step closer to me. You're not going to give it to me, he repeated. Fine. Then I'll just have to take it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small notebook, flipping through the pages until he found what he was looking for. You see, Dad, he said, his voice dripping with malice. I've been doing some research. And I've found out some very interesting things about you. He paused, letting the silence hang in the air. Things that could ruin your reputation, your business, your entire life. I felt a chill run down my spine as I realized what John was threatening. Blackmail. What are you talking about, John? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. John smiled again, his eyes glinting with triumph. I'm talking about your little secret, Dad, he said. The one you've been keeping from everyone for so long. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what John might know. What secret could he possibly have discovered? I don't know what you're talking about, I lied, trying to keep my cool. But John just laughed. Don't play dumb, Dad, he said. I know all about it. And I'm not afraid to use it against you. Sarah's eyes were fixed on me, her expression a mixture of fear and confusion. What is it, John? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. John's smile grew wider. Oh, I think Dad can tell you all about it, he said. Can't you, Dad? I felt a surge of panic as I realized I was trapped. John knew something, and he was going to use it against me. But what was it? And how was I going to get out of this situation alive? I looked at Sarah, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and pleading. I knew I had to protect her, no matter what. But how? I took a deep breath and tried to think of a way to deflect John's accusation. But before I could come up with anything, he spoke up again. You see, Dad, I've been doing some digging. And I found out about your little deal with James. The one where you two are embezzling money from the company. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what John was talking about. How did he know about that? And what did he plan to do with the information? That's not true, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. James and I are just investing in some side projects. That's all. John laughed. Don't lie to me, Dad, he said. I have proof. And I'm going to use it to get what I want. Sarah looked at me with a mixture of confusion and fear. What's going on, Dad? She asked. What's John talking about? I hesitated, unsure of what to say. But before I could come up with anything, John spoke up again. You don't know, do you, Sarah? He said. You don't know about your father's little secret. Sarah looked at me, her eyes pleading for answers. But I just shook my head, unsure of what to say. John, stop this, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Whatever you're trying to do, just stop it. But John just smiled. Oh, I'm just getting started, he said. You see, Dad, I've been playing a little game. A game of cat and mouse. And you're the mouse. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what John was saying. He had been planning this all along. And I was just a pawn in his game. What do you want, John? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. I want the money, John said. And I want it now. If you don't give it to me, I'll make sure everyone knows about your little secret. Everyone. I knew I was trapped. John had me right where he wanted me. And I had no idea how to get out of this situation. Fine, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I'll give you the money. Just leave Sarah alone. John smiled. Oh, I'm not going to leave Sarah alone, he said. She's going to come with me. And you're going to come too. I felt a surge of fear as I realized what John was planning. He was going to kidnap us. And I had no idea what he planned to do with us once he had us. John, please, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Don't do this. Just leave us alone. But John just laughed. Oh, I'm just getting started, he said. You're going to regret ever crossing me, Dad. And with that, he turned and walked out of the room, leaving me and Sarah alone and frightened. I looked at Sarah, who was watching me with a mixture of fear and pleading. What do we do, Dad? She asked. I shook my head, unsure of what to say. But before I could come up with anything, I heard a noise behind me. I turned to see John standing in the doorway, a smile on his face. It's time to go, he said. We have a long drive ahead of us. And with that, he reached out and grabbed Sarah, pulling her towards him. I tried to react, but it was too late. John had already dragged Sarah out of the room, leaving me alone and frightened. I knew I had to act fast. I had to get out of there and find help. But as I turned to run, I realized that John had locked the door behind him. I was trapped. And I had no idea how to escape. I was trapped. I frantically searched for a way out, but every door I tried led to more locked doors or empty hallways. I was starting to feel like I was in a never-ending maze, with no escape in sight. I tried to call for help, but my phone had no signal. I was completely cut off from the outside world. I was starting to feel like I was going to lose my mind. I paced back and forth in the room, trying to think of a plan. But every idea I came up with seemed to lead to more problems. I was trapped, and I had no way out. Just as I was starting to feel like I was going to give up, I heard a faint noise coming from outside the room. It sounded like footsteps, but they were light and cautious, as if someone was trying not to be seen. I froze, my ears perked up as I listened to the sound. It was getting closer, and I could tell that whoever it was, they were trying to sneak up on me. I slowly backed away from the door, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea who it was, or what they wanted. But I knew that I had to be careful. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, and I could sense that whoever it was, they were listening to me. I held my breath, waiting for them to make their move. Suddenly, the door creaked open, and a figure slipped inside. It was a woman, dressed in a black jumpsuit, with a mask covering her face. She looked like a ninja, and she moved with a quiet confidence that was unnerving. Who are you? I demanded, trying to keep my voice steady. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she pulled out a small device from her pocket and pressed a few buttons. Suddenly, the room was filled with a bright light, and I felt a strange sensation wash over me. I tried to move, but my body felt heavy, as if I was stuck in place. The woman moved closer to me, her eyes fixed on mine. Don't try to struggle, she said, her voice low and husky. It's no use. I tried to speak, but my voice was frozen in my throat. I was trapped, and I had no way out. The woman reached out and touched my face, and everything went black. When I came to, I was lying on a cold, hard floor. I was disoriented, and my head was spinning. I tried to sit up, but a wave of nausea washed over me, and I fell back down. I was in a dark room, with no windows. The only light came from a small bulb in the corner, casting flickering shadows on the walls. I was alone, and I had no idea where I was. I slowly got to my feet, my head pounding in my ears. I stumbled forward, trying to find a way out. But every door I tried led to more locked doors or empty hallways. I was trapped, and I had no way out. I was starting to feel like I was going to lose my mind. Suddenly, I heard footsteps outside the room. They were heavy, deliberate footsteps, and they were getting closer. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I had no idea who it was, or what they wanted. But I knew that I had to be careful. The door creaked open, and a figure loomed in the doorway. It was John, his eyes fixed on mine with a cold, calculating gaze. "Welcome to your new home," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You're going to be here for a while." I was shocked and enraged by John's words. How could he do this to me? I was his father, and I had always provided for him and loved him unconditionally. And this was how he repaid me? By kidnapping me and holding me captive. I felt a surge of anger and hatred towards John, and I knew that I had to get out of there. I looked around the room, trying to find a way to escape. But the doors were locked, and the windows were barred. I was trapped. Just as I was starting to lose hope, I heard a noise outside the room. It sounded like footsteps, but they were light and cautious, as if someone was trying not to be seen. I froze, my ears perked up as I listened to the sound. It was getting closer, and I could tell that whoever it was, they were trying to sneak up on John. Suddenly, the door burst open, and a figure rushed in. It was Sarah, her eyes fixed on John with a fierce determination. "Let him go, John," she said, her voice firm and commanding. John sneered at her, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew that he was caught, and he was trying to think of a way to get out of this situation. But Sarah was not going to let him get away with it. She walked up to him, her fists clenched, and she started to yell. "How could you do this to your own father?" she demanded. "How could you be so cruel and heartless?" John tried to defend himself, but Sarah was not having it. She kept yelling at him, her voice getting louder and louder. And then, suddenly, she stopped. She looked at John with a cold, hard gaze, and she said, "You're going to pay for what you've done." And with that, she turned to me and said, "Come on, Dad. We're getting out of here." I didn't need to be told twice. I followed Sarah out of the room, and we made our way back to the entrance of the building. As we walked, I could feel the weight of my captivity lifting off my shoulders. I was finally free, and I was never going to let John hurt me again. We reached the entrance, and Sarah pushed open the door. We stepped out into the bright sunlight, and I felt a sense of freedom that I had never felt before. We walked away from the building, and I could see the police cars pulling up. John was going to pay for what he had done, and I was finally going to get the justice that I deserved. As we walked, Sarah turned to me and said, "I'm sorry, Dad. I'm so sorry that I didn't see what was going on sooner." I looked at her, and I saw the tears in her eyes. I knew that she was sorry, and I knew that she loved me. "It's not your fault, Sarah," I said. "You didn't know what was going on. But you're here now, and you're helping me. That's all that matters." Sarah smiled, and she hugged me tightly. I hugged her back, feeling a sense of love and gratitude that I had never felt before. We stood there for a moment, hugging each other tightly. And then, we pulled back and looked at each other. "I love you, Dad," Sarah said. "I love you too, Sarah," I replied. And with that, we walked off into the sunset, ready to start a new chapter in our lives. We were finally free, and we were finally happy. As for John, he was arrested and charged with kidnapping and extortion. He was sentenced to many years in prison, and he was finally brought to justice. I never saw him again, and I never wanted to. He had hurt me and betrayed me, and I was glad that he was gone. But I was not bitter. I was grateful for the experience, because it had taught me the value of forgiveness and the importance of moving on. I was grateful for Sarah, who had saved me and loved me unconditionally. And I was grateful for the second chance that I had been given. I was finally free, and I was finally happy. And that's the end of my story. It's a story of love and betrayal, of forgiveness and redemption. It's a story of how I was kidnapped and held captive by my own son, and how I was finally set free. It's a story that I will never forget, and it's a story that I will always treasure. Because it's a reminder of the power of love and forgiveness, and the importance of never giving up.